Well, welcome to AWS reInvent, day one. Very excited to be here with all of you. Today, our topic revolves around cloud resiliency with shared responsibility. All of you have data that you care for within your enterprises, and ensuring that that data is resilient is critical to being prepared for disasters, cyber attacks, and even accidental, non-intentional malicious attacks that might even happen from your end users. My name is Teresa Miller. I'm the Senior Director of Technical Marketing at Cohesity, and I'm joined by my very special guest here, Kevin, who is one of our customers. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Lomax. I'm the IT Director at Pearl River Community College. I've been there for 6 years. Prior to that, I was in the United States Army for 20 years, where I retired and took on a job at the University of Southern Mississippi. And then my path has led me to Pearl River Community College, and have enjoyed every second there over the last 6 years. And welcome to the session.
So excited to have you here. Let's go ahead and break down the agenda, though. We'll get a lot of time with Kevin, though, thankfully. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
So our session today, we'll be together for probably the next 45 minutes to an hour, and it's broken into 4 sections. So we're going to start out by talking about some of the challenges that come from using just native backup options that come like with AWS, for example. But also, we're going to look at the industry perspective on this and what our customers are telling us they're being faced with that require them to dive a little bit further into shared responsibility, amongst other things. From there, we're going to sit down for probably a good 20 to 30 minutes, and we're going to hear firsthand what's keeping you up at night. And how you're solving some of those problems so that you can all learn from Kevin and his experiences. And then we'll spend the last 12 minutes or so today on these last 2 points. We'll talk about how you can improve your resilience with Cohesity, and I'm going to show you a demo of a solution that we call cloud vaulting that can really help with ensuring you have the right protection in place. So with that, there's a couple different things. Let's start with those challenges. So many of you are likely using AWS, or you're here doing some discovery around which next workload you might deploy, or even just getting started. So when it comes to backing up your AWS workloads, you get native protection capabilities that oftentimes are coming with your tenant. And I want you to use those, by the way, but they're only going to get you so far. So as we talk about things today, I want you to try to find those limitations and how much more you could be doing beyond that with a third-party solution. The other thing that I think is really important revolves around security considerations, data sovereignty. So if you're using those native options from AWS, they're also going to be protected on AWS. And so you may have requirements that lead you to using different media, different clouds to ensure that you're following your guidance that your enterprise needs, and your also like GDPR or SOX, et cetera. From an industry perspective, when it comes to the enterprise and industry challenges, shared responsibility is key. I recently had the opportunity to interview somebody from AWS, and I think one of the things that stuck with me the most during that conversation is so simple, but I think it's so important, is that even if your data is in their cloud, you are responsible for protecting your data. So you're responsible for the credentialing and securing and preventing folks or malicious attackers from getting at your data. And you are also responsible for recovering it. So we'll unpack that more today. Many of you, in terms of outgrowing your solutions, you may have something else. You're going to find that because, for example, let's take a cyber attack. Cyber attacks have so many different unknowns to them. You have no way of knowing how that's going to unfold. Something extremely basic is not going to get you to, for example, clean room recovery or being able to do forensic analysis or allowing for the right levels of replication. So you may outgrow it for a wide variety of reasons. Some of those could be the case. Cloud costs. We all want to keep that pocketbook at bay. We don't want to over budget or over commit. So having a strategy for this will also help. And then the last piece I want to call out is the compliance and data sovereignty. I know I personally previously had worked at a company that was global. So a lot of the cloud housing was happening between the United States and Europe. And we really had to be careful about how we were managing that data, preventing the wrong eyes from seeing it. Even if it was within the company, we had to keep it segregated. All right, so now that we've talked about some of the industry challenges, again, these are things our customers are telling us as well. We're going to sit down with Kevin and hear firsthand what's top of mind for you.
Absolutely.
So to get things started, let's just talk a little bit more about your background, a little bit deeper, and tell us what your company is doing.
So in the state of Mississippi, where I work at Pearl River Community College, I'm on the cybersecurity initiative for the state, and the trends that we see are obviously every day. These ransomware guys are getting smarter, they're getting bigger, they're getting better, and they're just utilizing the weaknesses that we have. So my background is obviously cybersecurity and working through the security parameters, just kind of understanding more of that and how we can push to, like you said, harden our postures. And even though the data is in the cloud, we have to make sure that we continue to secure that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you said how they're trying to leverage the weaknesses you have. So I think it's a good thing to have that knowing, like you're trying to harden, but we can't always stay on the other side of that, right? So it's an ongoing thing, is what that implied to me.
Oh, it is, and they're using better. We've talked about this before as well. They've used different parameters now. They're leveraging social media. They know how to headline emails, QR coding, things like that to reach out to the customer or to the end users to know how to grab you and make you want to click that link. And once you click that link, they've got you. And then they get in your network and they just continue to propagate their way around there.
Yeah, and that's not just desktops, that's servers, that's cloud infrastructure. It doesn't
Every
matter.
bit of it.
Yeah. All right, so stepping back just a moment, we'll get into some of that cyber resilience stuff a little bit further, but how long have you been a Cohesity customer? Why did you choose Cohesity and AWS?
So Pearl River's been a Cohesity customer since July of 2022. We unfortunately had a cyber event, and we had to step back and figure out how do we progress from this. Mm-hmm. And we did proof of concepts for many different vendors. And I think probably about day one, 5 hours into our proof of concept, we realized Cohesity was the path that we wanted to go. Just because we had to, after a cyber event, they just wait. They wait, see if you're going to patch your vulnerabilities, and they'll try to hit you again. So we had to make sure the college understood and knew that we were going to provide them some type of solution that we knew we could get our data back and it was safe. Cohesity provides that immutability, the air gapped, and most importantly, one of the big things, touching back on your security, the quorum. The quorum is such a huge piece with Cohesity, knowing you have to have multiple people that sign off that allow you to be able to get to your data and knowing it's safe.
Yeah. What about the AWS side of that? What made you go with AWS?
So AWS, knowing that their data centers are worldwide, knowing Cohesity's leveraging that data, spreading it across there, having the backups, and AWS is one of the leaders in the market, obviously. So putting our stuff in AWS and making sure, once again, we know we can retrieve it and back it up and it's secure was one of the leading forces in that.
Nice. Nice. I'm going to just, let people internalize that a little bit, because I think there's more that's going to come out when we get into some of like the actual strategy and some of the infrastructure as we keep talking. So let's transition then to your experience around some of the challenges that companies are facing as it relates to cyber resilience. I know you touched on it a little bit, but I think we can go deeper, right?
So I'm sure, like many other companies, colleges, businesses, IT departments are small. So we don't have the personnel at Pearl River. We're a one-stop shop. We cover everything from networking, wireless, software, student information and data. We have to make sure that's safe, it's secure, it's recoverable, and that's some of the big pieces to it. And end users, like I said before, end users, unfortunately, are your biggest vulnerability. And these bad actors, they don't sleep. They know how to get into your environment. They know how to use them end users. They know how to figure out ways to leverage certain pieces. Once they get in, they move back and forth, and they want to get as much as they can, as quick as they can, get out of there, and then try and hold you for that ransom.
So you said you went through a ransomware event, expanding on the cyber resilience and being prepared for that. I'm just curious, how did you know that your backups were clean to recover from?
We didn't.
Okay.
We didn't know. They actually got into our backups and wiped them.
Okay.
Fortunately, being in security, we had a known good 3 days. We'd have lost 3 days of data. We had one on a server that we just happened to do snapshots and backups, and we unplugged it from the network. And it was luck. It was pure luck.
Yeah.
And that's why at that point in time, we did not have cloud backups. So we knew that was a huge key. And we do all of our backups now we have on-prem using Data Protect. And then we also back it up into Fort Knox. So, and that's the key, is making sure on-prem is great for rapid recovery if there's no anomalies in your data and you can get to it. But having that Fort Knox piece, that's what'll help you sleep at night. Because everybody knows I've said this a million times, it's not a matter of if you're gonna get hit, it's a matter of when. And the truth behind that is, can you recover from that? And that's the key to all of this.
So what are some ways you've further increased cyber resilience with your critical workloads?
So one of the main takeaways, we initially did it through Cisco DNA, Cisco and Cohesity. Thank goodness are partners. We're a huge Cisco shop. Cisco has now advanced into Cisco XDR. And one of the things that we made sure to do was integrate that into our Cohesity platform. And like I said before, we're a small IT shop. So I don't have the personnel to sit there and monitor all these systems and all the things that go on every day. Well, with Cisco XDR, integrated with Cohesity, if it sees any of those anomalies, any of your data that has changed any type of patterns, Cisco XDR and instantly hits that. They take a snapshot of your data, they notify you, and it gives you a chance for your forensics teams, for your cybersecurity teams to go in there at that point in time and see what server, what event may have triggered that, and give you a much easier chance to be able to back up from that. Other things, end user training, and we'll hit on that a little bit later as well, but making sure you educate your end users. Be careful when you click those emails that look like they come from CEO, CFO, president. A lot of times we believe we're a little more important than we are. If they really wanted to get a hold of you, they're going to come find you. An email saying you want $100 for a Starbucks gift card, that's usually not an email you want to click on to try to say, hey, my CIO really remembered the things that I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, do you have a program that does actual testing as well? Have you gone that far?
So we do, and another thing is with Cohesity's the rapid recovery. And we back up 17 terabytes of data into Fort Knox through our testing procedures. We quarterly test. We have some servers that are sitting at a warm site. fire them up, pull all of our data back, and it has baffled me every single time. 17 terabytes of data completely recovered in 17 hours. An hour a terabyte. I mean, you think some of these ransomware attacks, people are down for 3, 6, 9 months, and you're thinking fully recovered in 17 hours. So
that's impressive.
it is. It's very impressive.
Yeah. How often do you do testing?
So we do it quarterly, and one of the things that I always stress to my team is making sure that we're doing the tabletop exercises, we're doing the testing, making sure that it, just like an NFL game, reading the playbook, we have to know everyone's on the same page, everyone is doing the same thing every time. So if that event happens, we're a well-oiled machine, and we can go into that DR plan and start activating things and making sure the college understands and knows. I mean, we as an IT team have a job to make sure that college and those students believe in us, rely on our data, rely on our recoverability, and that's why we have to make sure we have solutions in place that can do that.
Yeah, knowing what goes into having that set up quarterly sounds aggressive, so I like hearing that it's possible, that our audience can go back and say, think about what it's going to take to get to that point. Regardless of the size of the organization, it's so important, because for whatever reason, these things always happen at 3 a.m. on a weekend. and so if we don't have that tested and we don't know how long the business is going to be down and how quick we can get it back up, that could be a big problem.
It's funny you say that. I remember our attack like yesterday. My boss was at a Garth Brooks concert in Baton Rouge when it happened on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a night I'll always remember, but hope I never have to encounter again.
I hope not either.
But it's also great that you say that. One thing that we try to preach to others, in Mississippi we have 15 community colleges. Nobody wants to go through this alone. We try through our testing procedures and just people knowing that we went through it and seeing them go through these same type of cyber events. Yeah. We've brought them in, showed them our testing, showed them the Cohesity platform, and it's been amazing. We have, out of the 15, we have 6 of the Mississippi community colleges now operating and using Cohesity as their backup platform.
That's awesome.
So, as I've said, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, very, very awesome. So, what are some of the outcomes you've achieved by using our solution?
So, obviously the biggest outcome is having a very fluid disaster recovery plan, knowing that it works, being able to test it, utilize it, having the warm site, just having the end users, the training that we provide for them. Also the team, my team being able to respond much faster. Like I said before, Cisco XDR is kind of as Cisco likes to say, a sock in a box. Well, we also have our own third-party SIEM/SOC solution, and that goes back to the small IT departments and not having the number of personnel to be able to respond to these events and take care of these events. Having that SIEM/SOC and having that SIEM solution identify and recognize and notify, and then having those SLAs for that SOC team to call you and let you know of anything that's critical or high, helps you be able to first identify and then be able to respond. Yeah. And with Cohesity and continuing to just add different third-party applications and different things to integrate just helps that. And AI, everybody knows, I'm sure y'all are going to hear that the entire week here with AI, but AI is becoming a part of each and every piece of this, and it's helping to push not only backups but everything else, make things smarter and utilize some of that AI functionality to help us be able to push further into it.
Yeah, I think that's extremely interesting. I think the AI piece is it's got both sides to it. Like, I think the attackers are using AI, but AI also can help us on the flip side of it from
Right.
a research and recovery perspective. So I think it's interesting you mentioned that, and I agree. They're going to hear about AI all week. So what are your cyber resilience priorities for the next 12 months?
The next 12 months is to obviously not get hit again, or ever, but continue to harden our backups, obviously, continue to test them, end user training, all the time doing end user training, phishing, simulated phishing attacks, warm site, going and making sure our warm site is fully functional. Obviously, at some point in time, making it almost a hot site to be able just to roll everything quick, fast if we need to. But that's hard, and you hit on that earlier too. Is the financial piece of it. Not a lot of businesses, especially small colleges, struggle from the budget piece of that. So finding that balance, what your company can afford, what you're able to do with this, and that's why we went with the on-prem to be able to back up our stuff on-premise and snapshots, recover anytime you do any updates, stuff like that. If something goes haywire, you got to be able to recover quick. But then also being able to have that Fort Knox piece for that peace of mind, knowing if that on-premise backup solution gets compromised, that you have that in the cloud, like I said, a mutable air gap solution that you can get, and this is a good, clean, safe backup.
Yeah. So that tells me you kind of follow the 3-2-1 backup rule. Does that sound right? So can we explain that to the audience, or I can jump in and explain what it means if that's helpful. But so meaning that you're always going to have 3 copies of your data, right? 2 different media types, which I think is what I'm hearing you doing, right? 1 offline, I heard you say air gap.
That's right.
And then immutable, that's the cyber vaulting Fort Knox. So even with your company size, you are finding a way to make sure that you have all of those different copies available for any situation. And it's not just cyber events. Like data disasters happen all the time. It could be a fire, it could be a snowstorm, a flood. It doesn't matter. You just have to be ready for those complexities.
That's right.
Any additional thoughts on that?
No, that you're exactly right. And at Pearl River Community College, it would be great for us to say that our DR site was 400 or 500, maybe a different time zone away. It's not the budget, small college. It's not the sad part in Mississippi, tornadoes. We're literally 60 miles, our DR site's 60 miles from our main site. One tornado could wipe out both facilities. So that's where the 3-2-1, the biggest piece is the 2 for us, knowing we have the on-prem copy and most importantly that copy of our data in the cloud.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right, so thank you for sharing all of that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead and transition over to my next section here. I wanted to talk a little bit about resilience. You shared so many powerful examples, but I have one. When we go back to shared responsibility, Kevin, you hit on our employees sometimes are an unintentional threat. I worked in an enterprise. Guess what? 3 a.m. call, but before Valentine's Day, so it actually impacted everyone's Valentine's Day, this event that I'm going to tell you about. Our desktop team had an automation tool. We think, yeah, automation's great, but somewhere along the way, the permissions were a little bit more free-flowing than they should have been. And what happened was that 3 a.m. call was me responding to logging into some of my systems. This in particular was an Exchange server, some Citrix servers, database servers. I'm on call, I gotta check it out. And I see a desktop OS being deployed. And I'm not kidding. I'm like, wait, am I awake? Am I really seeing this? What's going on? So, I think sometimes we'd right away think, well, that could be a cyber attack. Someone got our credentials and did it, but root cause showed that there was a misstep in the hardening. And so we always have to be looking and watching to further harden. Always learn and grow from your experiences. Always being willing to look a little bit deeper to see what else could be lingering. So I thought that was a great example of why hardening matters and why it's not a one and done.
That's right.
So it ruined my Valentine's Day and many others.
It goes to show you they sit and wait for those holidays.
Yeah.
Those holidays or someone sitting at a concert.
Yeah.
They know when to strike for sure.
They do. All right, so now I want to talk, we'll spend probably the next 12 to 15 minutes on this last part. So this is an example of the flexibility of choice that Kevin really talked about a lot today. So regardless of where your AWS data or any of your enterprise data for that matter sits, so if you look at the location, we got edge, data center, cloud, sovereign cloud, we can help you protect it. The consumption models are completely flexible as well, self-managed, SaaS, partner managed. So when regardless of the size of your organization, small or large, you can put more of that on us or you can own that more yourself. The most important 3 takeaways on this slide are at the bottom. You get to manage this from a single UI. You don't have to have a separate product. Go ahead and still use your AWS protection, but we're going to help you get a little bit further. And I have some architecture slides where I can show you how this might apply to your environment in just a moment. But also allows you to kind of mix and match. You can use any of these things. You can protect any of these workloads, and I'll also give you the opportunity to see that in just a second. If you are an AWS customer, or you will be soon, these are some of the primary workloads: EC2, RDS, S3. We also have Aurora, and for some reason I'm not remembering the last one, but in any case, breadth and depth, it's always growing. And as of last week, we actually have a CEO to CEO agreement to ensure that not only will Cohesity customers always get commitment to cyber resilience and cloud resilience, so will AWS customers. So there will always be more when it comes to how we can help you. This is that architecture drawing that I wanted to talk you through. So on your left, there is a square. And so the left side of your screen there really is kind of showing how your on-prem data center might look. Maybe you're using AWS Outpost, which would be sitting on the edge. Might have an AWS storage gateway. But you'll notice the little data protect there down the shield, down in the bottom right of there. We can help protect all of those workloads. Then if you go to the right side of your screen, I have a giant rectangle over there. Those are your cloud workloads that you might be looking to protect if you're an if you're an AWS customer. And again, data protect. Now, if you go to the middle, you'll see a bunch of arrows. You can protect your on-prem workloads to the cloud, cloud to on-prem. You can do replication. That's that customer choice that we talked about a couple slides ago. So we'll help you scale and protect according to whatever your enterprise needs. Kevin talked a lot about cloud vaulting as one of the methods that he's using to ensure that he's following that 3-2-1 backup rule, for example. Now, our cloud vaulting solution offers quorum capabilities. I'll show you this in just a minute in my demo. So you have the quorum capabilities. So when you're looking at segregation of duties, and ensuring that someone is in there approving both sides of an action, and it could be anything. It could be recoveries, it could be policy changes, it could be as simple as not being able to remove a backup or delete anything. We also have the data lock, which is the worm, so you can't tamper with the information, and we also use RBAC. So It's very based on your role. You may or may not be able to make a change or even see it for that matter, just depending on your role. When I think about that scenario where I shared with you, we had the automation tool, the desktops, imaging servers. When I think about the recovery pathway that we had to go to, I hadn't shared this with you. So we were able to get most of our critical systems back online within about 24 hours, and unfortunately it did affect critical systems. And then beyond that, though, I mean, this recovery process went on for weeks. And so if we had a solution like this, I think we would have been able to get things back faster because we know it's not tampered with. We know there's no malicious malware sitting in there, et cetera. All right, so let me go ahead, and I don't do live demos at the events. I pre-recorded one for you. We don't play with, you know, the powers that be that control demos, but I'm going to give you a live voiceover of this demo. I'll walk you through it. So let's go ahead. So this is our dashboard for our cyber vaulting solution. In terms of what I'm going to look at first are the cloud vaults. So think data sovereignty, think about all the regions Kevin shared, global. You have the ability to vault copies of your data anywhere in the world in terms of whatever your requirements are. Now we talked about quorum as well, so separation of duties. Separation of duties is a critical, like your CISO cares about separation of duties for critical workloads, and this isn't any different. You don't want a malicious actor to get in and be able to recover a system or delete a backup. And we get really granular with what you can put separation of duties on. And it's done relatively simply. So you just click in the upper corner to get that started. Because I already have one set up, we're just going to give it a quick edit. So very simple UI to navigate. And what I'm going to show you next is that you have the operations. This is where you would choose what you're creating separation of duty on. And then here's where you set up your approvers. So it could be geographically dispersed. It could be to help if someone's on vacation, you have a backup. I have 2 approvers of the 3 required. Things will cancel out within 4 hours if nobody's responded. And this is the centralized location that you can keep track of that. So you can see I have a wide variety of approvals and even some declines. Now, in terms of this is a summary screen that is showing you that I have vaults successfully occurring or not. If I had a problem, it would show up here as well. This protection dashboard would also show us our recoveries. So in just a moment, I'll go ahead and just start talking a little bit more forward-looking. So how does a data protection policy occur? Protection job, you need a policy. So I have a couple policies, more than a couple, and I have pre-set them up, and I could create a new one. In just a second, you'll see me point out in the upper right how you could go ahead and create a new one. Now, in terms of what we're seeing here, you're just seeing me click through what it takes to add a vault. So when you think back to the beginning of the demo, I showed you where all those vaults were set up in advance. That's where this is coming from. I've chosen Oregon West. Give this a second. What we're going to show you, or what I'm going to show you in just a second here, we're going to edit. If you look, I have another job. When I think about 3-2-1 backup rule, I can have multiple vaults of the same data across the globe. I could even use different clouds. So you have the ability, again, it depends on the requirements you need to follow. If you did need to go with a different cloud vendor, you could. All right, so now we're initiating a recovery. You've seen everything in just a matter of a few minutes, what goes into building this and setting this up, right? Pretty straightforward.
Yes.
I think that aligns with your experience. Now I'm going to initiate a recovery. So I'm going in, I'm choosing actually a group of servers, and I'm now selecting the vault copy. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate. Now we've also talked about some things today, such as like air gapping and going back to isolated environments. This is an isolated environment I'm going to restore back to. It's going to give me the ability to further analyze the machine before I put it back into production. In theory, it's going to be clean, but it's always good to have that peace of mind where you can do the forensics. Now, on the bottom, you'll notice I had the prompt for quorum approval. So what you're going to see next is I'm going to go ahead and click. So when you're logged in as one of the approvers, which was what the case was here, it'll auto approve. But then you also saw me go in and do the other side of the approval. And now we have a recovery that has been initiated. So pretty straightforward. You need the Cloud Vault. You need a data protection job with a policy that's vaulting. And you need to be backing things up on whatever, by the way, you can do whichever recovery time or recovery point that you need. All right. So I'm going to just take a few minutes to wrap things up. So we talked about why shared responsibility matters. The biggest key takeaway for you today is that your data, regardless of where it lives, is up to you to care for and be able to recover. We gave you a lot of really great tips that you can bring forward to your enterprise for cyber resilience planning. And look, Cohesity can help. And in fact, we'd love for you to stop by our booth. We're at 1425. I have some other resources for you that you could also pull up and leverage. But you know, we'd love to see you. We have some games. Kevin, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this session.